TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcasting to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, the Islamic Republic has warned that war with Iran is the mother of all wars, while warning that shipping in the Strait of Hormuz might not be safe for international passage. Iran has reportedly agreed to pay an unprecedented $30 million each month to Hamas in return for intelligence on Israel's defensive missile program. U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper warned that any Turkish operation into northern Syria would be unacceptable, and while stopping short of guaranteeing the protection of Washington's Kurdish partners, Esper underscored America's resolve to prevent unilateral incursions. President of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Hassan Rouhani, declared that while peace with Iran is the mother of all peace, war with Iran is the mother of all wars. In a speech at the Iranian Foreign Ministry in Tehran this morning, the Iranian president reiterated a previous warning in which shipping in the Strait of Hormuz might not be safe for international passage.
صلح با ایران مادر همه صلح هاست. جنگ با ایران مادر همه جنگ هاست. باز هم تکرار میکنم. اگر سربازان شما امنیت میخوان در منطقه، امنیت با امنیت، شما نمیتونید امنیت ما رو خدشه‌دار بکنید بعد در انتظار امنیت خودتون باشید. صلح در برابر صلح، نفت در برابر نفت.
In light of growing tensions with the United Kingdom over Iran's seizure of a British-flagged ship in the Strait of Hormuz last month and the commandeering of yet another Iraqi-owned vessel at the beginning of this week, President Rouhani insisted that London ignored repetitive warnings over British vessels that breached maritime regulations in the Strait of Hormuz. Regardless of these warnings, which the president referred to as facts, he also took the opportunity to decree security for security, a strait for a strait.
خب ما تو خلیج فارس کشتی‌های انگلیسی خیلی وقت به اخطارها توجه نمی‌کردن، به مقررات توجه نمی‌کردن. حالا دیگه آدم در زمان صلح و رفاقت و دوستی گاهی از خطای طرف میگذره. اما امروز چه نیازی داره دیگه ما از خطای شما بگذریم؟ دیدید که ما نگذشتیم. ناوچه‌تون بود اونجا که چرا هیچ کار نکرد؟ شما که میگید ما میخوایم ناوچه بیاریم تو خلیج فارس، وقتی سپاه پاسداران از روی هلیکوپتر میآمدن روی این کشتی انگلیسی، ناوچه انگلیسی که اون کنار ایستاده بود تماشا میکرد، چرا نیومد جلو؟ پس ادعای نابجا نکنید. امنیت در برابر امنیت، تنگه در برابر تنگه.
President Rouhani made this latest threat alongside Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, who just one day earlier declared that Iran will no longer turn a blind eye to what it perceives as maritime offenses in general and what he termed as England's unlawful participation in piracy. Despite Iran's refusal to shy away from threatening security in the Strait of Hormuz, Germany continues to refuse its admission to a US-led coalition that aims to secure international freedom of maritime navigation in the strategic waterway. During a visit of the Polish-German border city of Słubice, German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas reiterated Berlin's view in which Washington's strategy of maximum pressure on Iran is perceived as wrong.
Wir haben mit den Franzosen und den Briten lange darüber gesprochen, wie eine solche Mission aussehen könnte, auch in Abgrenzung zur amerikanischen Strategie des maximalen Drucks gegenüber dem Iran, den wir für falsch halten. Im Moment ist es so, dass die Briten sich eher einer amerikanischen Mission anschließen wollen. Das werden wir nicht tun.
With regard to a potential formation of an EU-led mission that will be tasked with a similar monitoring task force, Berlin's top diplomat asserted that while it remains on the table, it would most likely take time.
Und sicherlich wird uns innerhalb der Europäischen Union das Thema weiterhin beschäftigen. Wir wollten eine europäische Mission. Das Thema ist auch ganz sicherlich nicht von der Tagesordnung. Es ist allerdings auch absehbar, dass es sicherlich noch Zeit in Anspruch nehmen würde, die Europäische Union davon zu überzeugen, eine Mission, wie auch immer die dann aussieht. Wir haben immer von einer Beobachtermission gesprochen.
Earlier this week in Sydney, Australia, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo sought to explain the necessity of establishing the wide-scale coalition of nations that will aim to deter the Islamic Republic from targeting commercial vessels at sea. In an exclusive interview with Sky Australia, the American top diplomat revealed that more than 60 nations have been invited to join the U.S.-led task force.
Iran, the world's largest state sponsor of terror, has demonstrated its willingness to pull commercial vessels from the sea. It put mines on 6 ships. It pulled a British vessel from the waters. It's still holding that ship. And we just think that's wrong and needs to be protected against. And the best way to do that is deterrence, to create stability. So what we've asked 60-plus nations to do is provide assistance in securing and deterring from and securing the Strait of Hormuz so that commercial vessels can travel through there.
While the United States, in effect, does not procure significant volumes of oil from the Arabian Gulf, Washington's commitment to the security of its allies and partners, as well as its effort to avoid a kinetic conflict, has forced it to act to assure the freedom of maritime navigation.
We want to make sure we have a comprehensive program so that Iran won't do something that will either A, risk that there'll be a kinetic conflict, which is something the United States certainly doesn't want, but second, that we protect the Australian economy and the Japanese economy and the South Korean economy, who each depend on goods being able to flow through that strait.
Now, in another yet related matter, Iran has reportedly agreed to pay an unprecedented $30 million each month to Hamas in return for intelligence on Israel's defensive missile program. The deal was reportedly reached during meetings between Iranian and Hamas officials in Tehran mid-July, where the deputy chief of the Palestinian group, Saleh al-Arouri, described his organization as the Islamic Republic's first line of defense. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was cited as saying that the resistance and struggle employed by Hamas against Israel is based on a definitive divine promise that will surely end in favor of the Palestinian people and the Islamic world. He later wrote on his Twitter account that Hamas stands at the core of Palestine's movement, just as Palestine stands at the core of the world of Islam's movement. The cash surge promised by Iran is at least 80% higher than Hamas reportedly received last year. Israel's United Nations ambassador Dani Danon condemned the development, tweeting that despite lacking food or medicine, Iran and Hamas evidently have plenty of money for terror, and reiterated Israel's determination to act against all branches of Iran's terror operations. Neither Israel's foreign ministry nor Hamas were willing to respond to the report at this time. Now to Tokyo, Japan, where U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper warned that any Turkish operation into northern Syria would be unacceptable, and while stopping short of guaranteeing the protection of Washington's Kurdish partners, Esper underscored America's resolve to prevent unilateral incursions. The comments by the U.S. Defense Secretary came in response to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's declared intention to launch a wide-scale military operation in an SDF-controlled area east of the Euphrates River in northeastern Syria. The SDF, short for the Syrian Democratic Forces, is an alliance of local Syrian militias which serve the United States as its ground force in the battle against Islamic State. Turkey, however, views the SDF's most powerful Kurdish militia, YPG, as an extension of the PKK, thus designating it as a terrorist organization. That said, Washington does not share Ankara's position. Meanwhile, the London-based Reuters news agency reported that a team from the Pentagon was in Turkey to speak with Turkish officials about the issue, while Secretary Esper voiced hope that an agreement could be reached with Ankara. Thank you for watching us. You can also watch us at TV7israelnews.com or at TV7.fi. For any comments, please send your emails to israelnews@tv7.fi. And I would like to take this opportunity once again to thank all of our supporters, as your financial donations and prayers are what make TV7 Israel News possible. Keep praying for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. I'm Jonathan Hessen, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.
Hi, this is Mayan Hessen from TV7 Israel News. Like our videos? Support our cause? Enjoy learning more about the region? Want constant updates about the Middle East? Then subscribe to the TV7 Israel News YouTube channel. Make sure to also turn on the notification bell with just one simple click of a button. After subscribing to our channel, a bell icon will appear under every one of our videos. You will find the notification bell right next to the subscribe button, and all you have to do is click on the bell icon, and make sure small sound bars appear above it. This way, you'll be alerted every time we upload a new video, and thus will never miss a thing. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching.